Hello, and welcome to Let Me Look That Up, the show where we use the internet to try to answer life's trivial questions. I'm Tristan, and today I look some things up.
I'm Giovanni, and I also look some things up. And our third host today is you, Lemmy. You are our third host, and you asked the questions today.
That's right, we're back with a special Lemmes Ask episode, as promised. You listeners have been sending in questions that were sparked by our conversations, like this one. Platypus? Bird? Mammal? What?
So today, Tristan and I are pulling out our phones to see if we can answer your questions.
Finally, as always, a friendly reminder. We are, at best, hobbyists who are mostly relying on random stuff we found on the internet. And let's be honest, sometimes it's hard to verify the answers we find.
Yeah, like the internet only goes back to like maybe the 90s. So if something happened in the 1800s, it's just not on the internet.
Okay, Giovanni, how about you start us off with the first question?
Okay. So one of the favorite topics of Let Me Look That Up turns out to be etymology. Figuring out where words came from, phrases came from. Our idioms and innuendo episode kind of exemplifies that, as well as our soup, stews, and chowder episode. So our first one comes from Nathaniel. He was on the show recently.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, so he's like pro Lemmy level. All right, so Nathaniel asks, what is the origin of yeet?
Yeet?
Yeah, I said it wrong. What is the origin of yeet?
There you go. I feel uncomfortable saying that word.
Yeah, no, we're too old for yeet. Well, barely.
Barely too old.
The survey shows.
Survey says.
All right, so Tristan, what are your thoughts on the origins of the word yeet?
I have no idea. It is one of those words that just kind of appeared.
Yeah.
And like, I've never really understood the meaning other than like people picking something up and yeeting it.
Yeah. So a thing that I'm always impressed by is how old a lot of our current slang, or what feels like current slang, actually is.
Right.
Vibe, used in the modern way, or mood. Both of those actually like date back way further than you would expect. But I don't think yeet is an old word. I think it exists within the realm of the internet existing.
It's a new word.
Yeah, mostly
modern.
Yeah. So let me share what I have looked up here. It seems that the word was invented. No, that can't be. Like, I'm sure somebody said yeet in rural Africa in like 1100. The word yeet, as we know it, goes back to the late 2000s, and it wasn't popularized until like 2013, 2014.
Right.
If most of you look it up, you'll find that it was popularized in 2013 with a series of Vine videos of people doing dance moves.
Vine. Rip Vine.
Yeah. So we're going to include a link to a video from Lil Meatball doing his yeet dance back in 2014. And a lot of people credit that with being the one that like launched the meme of yeet dance. But there is evidence of yeet existing before that. So, all right, you have to talk me through the yeet dance as you're watching it.
Okay. So, Little Meatball is hanging out with his friends on the
high school track, right?
High school track, yeah, out in the field.
He's basically dabbing. Well, everybody is saying, yeah, yeet.
That's very...
To me, it looks like he's ad-libbing dabbing.
Yeah.
Like he took dab and said, I can...
But it's not like the up over the face. It's more of like down by the hips.
Yeah. So,
but also like yeets. Some other movements as well.
Oh, right. So that's the yeet dance craze of the mid 20-teens.
Okay.
And then I digged and digged. I dug through the archives of the internet, and the oldest reference that I could find that was like sourced was surprisingly on Merriam-Webster.com.
All right.
It referenced an article discussing the Final Four basketball tournament, a college basketball tournament.
Okay.
In the Birmingham News, where it talked about every time somebody made a three-pointer, the crowd would yell yeet, but nobody knew what it meant. And that was from 2007. So like it was used before that moment, and it was popular enough to be a thing during the Final Four in 2007.
But it was in the teens that
it became popular.
We had
mainstream.
Yeah. social media made it mainstream.
Us olds could learn about it. So there was one article I read that said it might be a portmanteau of yes and neat. I don't think that's true.
That doesn't sound right.
No, I mean, like, it's a fun little, like, folk etymology, but that, no way. Like, it's too cool to be like, oh, that's neat.
Yeah. I mean, even when I was in college, around the time that it was used for the basketball thing, like, I wouldn't go around saying that's neat.
Yes, neat.
Yeah. Yes, neat.
And so, like,
you made a 3-pointer. Yes, neat.
Yeet. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
No.
All right, so the actual earliest reference to yeet on the interwebs that I could find was from a video game released in 1991 called Boppin'.
Bobbin?
Boppin'.
Boppin.
Like bop him on the head, boppin'?
Like a bop it.
Sure, yeah, like a boppin'.
Yeah.
Boppin'.
But boppin.
There was actually a guy who was born with the name Yeet, like the next year. So, like, that guy's name and this video game are like the earliest Yeets I could find.
Okay.
I want to point out that there were only 248 copies of that game sold. And so I don't think that's where it came from.
Are you sure?
I mean, like, hey, who knows? I don't know who bought that game. One of those 284 people could have said, I'm going to turn this into a dance. And I'm going to do it on Vine. And I'm going to tell Little Meatball about it.
Yeah. Something tells me that if it's a game that I've never even heard of, that probably not that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the story of yeeting.
Maybe Yeet, the guy, was on the basketball team.
Sure.
And
so he was born in 91. How old would he have been in 2014? 24. So college basketball.
Right. College basketball. Worked. And he would, like, whenever he would make the 3-pointers, everybody would be like, Yeet, yelling his name.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of became a thing. That's my theory.
I'm gonna look it up
right now. Happening live.
The suspense is killing me. All right. Ko Yeet, born 1992, is a Malaysian actress. Wow, we got gender wrong.
Oh, bummer. Okay.
Did she play basketball? Let's look it up. She got a law degree from the University of Reading.
Okay.
So, got that going for her. And she was in TV starting in 2006. It looks like in China.
Well, there goes that theory.
All right. Well, it was A for effort.
Yeah. Apologies for the wrong gender.
Like, people whose name is Alexa, who were named before Alexa.
This is a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her and Yeet.
Yeah.
Alexa's
that and people
Yeets.
whose name used to be Google.
Yeah. So rough. Okay. All right, Tristan. Tristan, hit me with your first Lemmes Ask.
Oh, right. So mine comes from our friend on Instagram, Tintin de Jesus. She said, I was listening to this episode with my friend Liz when the moon set. Then we realized we have no idea how the moon works. If you guys wanted to look this up and explain to us how the moon works, we'd appreciate it.
It's a little broad.
Yeah. So, Giovanni.
Yeah.
If you were to...
How'd that moon work?
Just, yeah. How'd that moon work?
Well, I think I can reference our last question of there was a big asteroid that yeeted the moon up into orbit around Earth. And I think the moon's slowly getting further and further away from the Earth.
Yeah. Did the asteroid yeet into Earth?
Yeah. So God yeeted an asteroid into Earth. The asteroid yeeted itself and part of the Earth into orbit around Earth. And then slowly it's spinning, or it consolidated into one moon. I mean, it probably consolidated a handful of moons, but those other moons are lost to time.
Dissipated, yeah.
And much smaller. And then it's slowly drifting further away from Earth, meaning that the tides are getting lighter, less aggressive. This moon's getting smaller, so like thousands of years ago, the moon would have looked bigger. The moon has a weird orbit. It doesn't like only come out at night. We just can see it better at night.
Yeah.
And that's how the moon works. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. There we go. That's it. That's how the moon works. And the origins of yeet. It is from creation or the beginning of the universe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at least the beginning of the moon.
At least the beginning
Well, no, because when the asteroid was yeeted,
yeah,
that's when it all really began.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't go into the depths of like how the moon is moving further away from us or where its origins, just more of the discussion of
it's a good
like
thing Giovanni just knows that offhand, right?
just offhand. So we are, what I looked up was just kind of the basics of the moon.
Okay.
Right?
Moon basics.
The
moon 101.
101.
Intro to the moon. Professor Tristan. Welcome to class.
So there are three
Craters. He's making circles with his hands.
There are three celestial bodies in play here.
Okay.
All right. We have the sun,
Yes.
we have Earth,
Yes.
and we have the moon.
The moon. Yes.
Earth is moving around the sun, and the moon is moving around the Earth.
Yes.
So there are kind of 8 main phases of the moon that are the like.
Okay. We cannot do this multiplication anymore. You went from 3 to,
Yeah.
well, we went from 1 to
Look,
3 to 8.
This is really hard to describe without a diagram.
Yeah. This is a visual. This is like a video question.
Yeah. So basically, when there's one side of the moon that's always facing the Earth,
Yeah. What do they call that?
this side of the moon.
No. The non-dark side of the moon. No. It's like tidal lock. It's called tidal lock. The moon is tidal locked with the Earth. It's
right.
One side's
Okay.
always facing the Earth.
So it's always facing the Earth. When it is in between the Earth and the sun,
Yes.
that's a new moon. We can't see it.
Right. Because the dark side of the moon is facing us.
Yeah. And then as it moves around the Earth, we start being able to see more of it because it's just reflecting the
sun,
light
yeah.
from the sun.
Yeah.
So as
we
it's
just see
moving around.
We see the backside shadow slowly disappear as it becomes...
Right. And then when
more
it's
and more
on
full.
the opposite side of the Earth from the sun, that's when we get a full moon.
Or a lunar eclipse. Wait, no. No, that is what the... Never mind.
Yes. And then so on and so forth. And it just continues to do that.
Yeah.
It affects more things like tides, as Giovanni said. But I mean, if we're just talking about like how the moon work,
Yeah.
that's the very basics of the moon. It rotates around and we see it based on where it is in position to the Earth and sun.
Right. And it doesn't move at the same speed that the Earth is rotating. So it doesn't have a like 1 day orbit.
Right.
It orbits, well, the speed of the Earth spinning plus the movement of the moon equals, what is it, like how many hours does it take for the moon to do a rotation around the Earth?
How many hours?
I
mean, it does a lunar cycle in roughly a month. It's like 29.9 something.
But it also, like, if you go out tonight and see where the moon is, and then you go out at the same time tomorrow night, the moon will be like behind that by 30 minutes.
Oh, right.
Because the pace the moon's moving around the Earth, the pace of the Earth spinning, all those things add up to the moon not wanting to be. The moon doesn't want to play along with our math, just like we've talked about time. The moon just doesn't want to, the moon doesn't care about time.
It does its own thing.
Yeah. So it is always going to be in a different spot if you look at it at the same time. It doesn't behave like the sun where it's relatively predictable. I mean, maybe that's because we based our clock off of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it matches our time better. But the sun and the moon did not talk about what pace things should happen. The Earth spinning did not talk about what times. Yeah. So
that's why we see the moon during the day sometimes, or sometimes it's like really low, or sometimes it's like in the middle of the sky.
Yeah. Sometimes the first time you see it is just right at sunset. Other times you see it, middle of the day. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, and the bonus fact of why the moon be red sometimes.
Why the moon be that?
It's just the way that it's like the light through our atmosphere at the right angle.
It's like dust and stuff.
Yeah.
And thickness of atmospheres.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Oh, we should talk about red and blue shifting for looking at solar things.
Okay.
So the Doppler effect, when a car goes by,
right?
It's higher when it's coming towards you and lower when it's leaving.
Yeah. I just want to say you had the perfect opportunity to actually do the Doppler effect with
rather than fake
with
it?
your mic.
All right, let me try. Doppler effect, go. It's really hard to not like it's like I want to do the wow with my mouth.
You want to make the
rather than
but you're just
as I move past the mic. It's so hard.
It's
anyway,
okay.
The light does the same thing when we're looking at stars that are moving away from us or stars that are coming closer to us based on our relative positions.
Mm-hmm.
It's called red phasing and blue phasing. Red, I think, is going away and blue is coming. It's interesting.
Interesting.
That is all.
Okay. Crazy. Giovanni, what is our next question?
All right. I have a handful of questions here I can pick from. Let's go with a question from Colina. She asks, some questions recently crossed my mind that I thought might be in your wheelhouse. What exactly is a jaybird? And why is it considered completely naked? There are some emojis in there, but they're more of a visual thing. So, like...
Yeah, describing an emoji.
Tristan saw me do the emojis.
Yeah. No, I didn't.
Tristan, what are your thoughts on naked jaybirds?
Naked as a jaybird. Well, all animals except for like Donald Duck are naked.
Right.
And so like maybe it's just kind of referencing like, hey, you're as naked as an animal.
Okay.
And jaybird just sounded good.
Right. Okay. Case closed.
There we go.
Well, you're not too far off as far as I could tell.
Okay. It's kind of like when you walk around without your pants on. People are like, oh, he's
naked as a Donald.
He's
Duck.
Pooh Bear in it.
Oh, Pooh Bear in it.
Yeah. Or Donald Duck in it.
Or if you just wear shorts, like, oh, it's Mickey Mousin'.
Yeah.
These are all phrases we've used recently.
Yes, all of them. I use them on a daily basis.
What if you're just wearing like overalls? Is it a Roger Rabbit?
It would be a Roger Rabbit. If you're just wearing
like a bow tie,
like a collar and a tie, you're doggy-oggying it.
Right. I don't know what that one is.
It's a very...
I mean, I could probably Yogi Bear that one.
Yeah.
But you'd have to have a hat on as well.
Yeah, you'd have to. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Naked as a jaybird. I always thought that it came from the like jaybird. And naked as a jaybird is like when you got arrested, they would strip you down and put you in the delousing chamber, spray you down, get all those louses off. We all know how many louses we have.
Yeah.
I think it's lice when it's plural.
Lice. Louse is singular of lice?
I think so. I'll let you look that one up.
Okay.
But yeah, the delousing process and like naked as a jaybird, referencing your like vulnerability and all that stuff. But it turns out that it's maybe not from that.
Okay.
So jaybird is a phrase, probably comes from like the 1600s, so it could be from that. But in the first half of the 1800s, it was pretty common to refer to somebody being naked and referencing some sort of unfledged bird. So like a hatchling. So one of the most common was naked as a robin or a fledgling robin.
Mm-hmm.
One of the earliest examples of that is from May 1826, naked as a robin 2 hours old. In October of 1822, so a few years before that, naked as an unfledged bird. And then in 1841, there was naked as an unfledged jaybird. So just referencing newborn birds as naked and like I imagine like swollen eyed.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably not part of it, but that's like that's what I think of when I think of a new bird.
Right.
So yeah, that's probably where it comes from. Is like some people went with robin, some people went with jaybird.
It's kind of a regional like what's the bird that's kind of
yeah. What's a common bird that maybe you've seen in a nest before and noticed its nudity?
Yeah, a jaybird sounds like kind of a more southern kind of thing.
Well, the one that is in here is from Mississippi, so yeah, that might be true.
And then robin seems like a more like England, Britain.
An old world reference. Yeah. So if you're from Australia, you'd be like naked as a fledgling emu. Naked as a fledgling emu.
Naked as an emu. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it emu or emu?
Emu.
Yeah. Our New Zealanders won't help.
They don't have those.
Our Australian listeners could let us know how you pronounce emu.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, just regional bird relation. So, jay in the U.S. also referred to like bumbling country bumpkin. That's where we get the word jaywalking. Like not paying attention, just kind of doop-a-dooing.
I always thought it had to do with like when you walk across, you're kind of making the shape of a J. But I thought that never really made sense because it's like, well, you could be making an L or
Right. There's a lot of shapes you can make.
U.
Yeah. So jaywalking and a few other phrases that use the word jay come from that. So it could be related to that as well. My best guess is naked as a newborn bird was kind of the original, and people used the jaybird. And then when jaybird or jailbird became a popular phrase in the 20s and 30s, that kind of reinforced this phrasing
Kind of
with this
changed it a
new
little
mental
bit.
image. Because the
Yeah.
mental image of a naked jailbird stuck with me more than the mental image of a baby bird.
Right.
And so it worked for me that the two things mashing together.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think the why is it referred to being naked? I think it's more if we were trying to talk about how naked somebody was rather than this thing. I think the naked came first and the bird came second. Not the bird came first, and then we talked about how naked it was.
Right.
Does that make
It's
sense?
like, yeah. Oh, they were naked. How naked were they? They were as
Yeah,
naked
yeah.
as a jaybird.
So 1820 stand-up comedians
Yeah.
did the really like the call and response type of jokes. Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay. Well, I did look it up while you were sharing that. Louse is the singular of lice. I've never thought of a singular lice before or singular
Right.
louse before because
Right.
we always talk about them as a group.
A group, yeah. So mouse and mice, louse and lice, moose and moose.
Moose and mouse.
Yeah. Well, English.
Moise?
It's
We should call them moist.
no.
There's also a phrase called louse up, which is informal to do something badly. So you really loused up there.
Oh, so it's not like a call. Hey, bro, louse up.
No.
It's like, oh, you loused that one up.
Yeah, you really loused that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I loused up.
There you have it.
Do lice do things poorly?
I mean, you're in poor shape if you have a louse or two.
You know what? I've read many places that lice don't prefer dirty hair over clean hair. So let's not cast aspersions on the loused.
On those who have been loused.
All right. Tristan, back to you. Hit me with another Lemmy question.
Okay, so if you recall, the origins of our show was from a class I was taking, and one of my classmates actually sent in a question for us. Their podcast is Corner SS Pod.
Oh.
The SS is for Server Stories, so it's Corner
Server
Stories
Pod.
Podcast.
You can find it at Corners SS Pod.
There we go. Anyway, they said, why do people say breaking the bank? Like when they just spent a lot of money, they say they broke the bank.
Should we start a sister podcast that's just etymology?
Maybe.
Etymology corner with, let me look that
Yeah,
up.
because a lot of people are, I feel like that's the first thing to come to mind. That's a really easy, like, why do we say this thing?
Yeah. What if we played Scrabble while doing that podcast?
Oh, that would
And
be
you
fun.
talk about the etymology of the Scrabble word you just used.
Yeah.
I used the word a.
We should get a sponsorship from
Scrabs.
Scrabble and Webster's.
Oh, what if we...
Or Merriam-Webster.
Or maybe get Bananagrams to get in on this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All those word games. It'll be great.
This sounds lucrative.
So, breaking the bank or broke the bank. Thoughts?
Yeah, breaking the bank. I mean, again, we go back to the 1920s. Jumps into mind here when we have the Great Depression, and breaking the bank with like a run on the bank to the point where the bank would no longer be able to function.
Right.
So you could break the bank that way.
Okay. Yeah. So,
break the bank system would be the full phrase, I think.
if you recall what you said earlier about words existing long before we ever thought they did, or phrases, this one has origins somewhere between the 1700s,
Okay.
like a while ago, and it comes from gambling.
Wow.
At least that's what the popular thought is on where this.
Okay, so our
origins-
best guess, like with most
Yeah.
word origins, we're really just guessing, and our
like,
best
it
guess
seems
is
to have come from this.
Yeah.
So, just the quick definition from our friends at Merriam-Webster, to break the bank is it's an idiom. We love those idioms.
Is it an innuendo? Let's see. How can we make this innuendo? No, don't do it.
Nope, I don't like I don't like it. To be very expensive or too expensive, to cost a lot of money, usually used in negative statements. So now we say it in the phrase of like, oh, I want to buy a car, but one that doesn't break the bank.
Right.
But it actually comes from gambling.
Yes.
And the idea of like the house in which you are gambling,
right?
The establishment,
yes,
has run out of money. Okay. Or like you have won so much money they can't pay you out.
So the bank would be the house.
The bank is the house, and you have broke them
by winning too much. By winning too good.
Yeah.
How does moon work?
How moon work? How break bank?
How gamble work?
So yeah, that's there were several sources that pointed back to gambling and winning too much money.
Yeah. And so I think my idea of the Great Depression is back to the reinforcing an already existing idea of the run on the bank also broke the bank because people took too much money out. Mm-hmm. And so when something's too expensive, it breaks the bank.
Yeah. And it's interesting. We see this theme, and we're going to continue.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you.
Okay, go ahead.
It'd be way more fun is if it was like a reference to a riverbank. Like, oh, too much water broke the bank.
Oh, like I stood too close to the edge and it broke the bank.
Oh, I'm too heavy. Yeah. Like just way out of left field.
Yeah.
Not like
it has nothing to do with money at all.
Or like maybe the old English word for bark, like a tree bark, was bonk.
Bonk.
And like broke the tree bark. Like that would have been way more fun.
Yeah.
Oh, well. It is what it is.
I mean, who knows? The origins, sometimes words are like, oh, that came from a French word that was blah, blah, blah. And it evolved into misunderstandings of how the word was said or whatever by another language.
Yeah. Well, good thing. English never misunderstands other languages' words.
Yeah. Everything that English has ever been is exactly the
Get it right every time.
Word.
All right. Sorry. You were going to say something important.
I was just going to say what we've seen so far when we look at these etymology things and when like continuing forward is the evolution of meanings, where like originally it was talking about specifically gambling, but now it's just like anything that is too expensive.
Right.
And they're like, it's just interesting how words can evolve depending on the, I guess, social norms.
Yeah. They can, like, the meaning can broaden or narrow depending on when it's used and the current. Yeah. Like there's a whole thing I was reading about a while ago where words do that same thing. Where like the vowel sound shifts, or the like, okay, we just had a baby, we're dealing with a lot of diapers. My wife and I now call them dipes instead of diapers,
right?
And like that kind of happens culturally as well, where we have a 2 or 3 syllable word that will shorten down to 1 syllable, and then that 1 syllable gets attached to another word and becomes a 2 syllable word again, and then that word eventually gets broken down into a 1 syllable. Like there's this whole like shrinking and growing of the meaning and the pronunciation, and where you drop a word in something like naked as a jaybird and all that stuff, and where the meaning kind of sometimes sticks. It's fun to trace those lines through history and then realizing you have to guess.
Ooh, dirty as a dipe.
Dirty as a dipe. T-dipe. That's what's going to be eventually. T-dipe.
T-dipe.
To describe somebody who's unclean.
Etymology is really interesting. And I guess our listeners are really want to know more about it.
It's fun.
It is fun.
It's fun to figure it out.
Yeah. Giovanni, it turns out that our Lemmies had so many questions that we couldn't fit them all into one episode. That being said, we're splitting this episode into 2 parts. Keep an eye out in the next couple of weeks for part 2 of Lemmes Ask. Until then, if there's questions that are on your mind that you want us to look up, go ahead and send those to us. You can reach us on our social media. You can also contact us on our website, letmelookthatup.com. And if you want to support the show, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/letmelookthatup.